Broadcasting from the Dixon Petunia Festival Sweetland Studios, this is Along the Rock.
Welcome to Along the Rock, brought to you by the Radar Free Press. I'm Nicole Bollman, and today I have Scott Shumard, City Manager for the City of Sterling.
Thank you.
And Scott, thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here, I think.
It'll be good, I promise. So the reason we invited you here today is because you have recently celebrated 25 years at the city.
Yes, I hate to think about that, but yes.
Okay. So, well, congratulations.
Getting up there, yes.
That is a long time. So
it is, and it's 25 years. I started as an intern back in 1999, straight out of college, and then my predecessor, who brought me here as an intern, left for another community, and that was the end of 2007. And then in 2008, they did their search and appointed me, and I've hung on ever since then.
Wow,
yes.
That's amazing.
It's when I first started in the career, the average tenure was like 4.5 to 5 years. So this is really it's gotten longer since then, but there used to be a lot more turnover, a lot more communities were finding it to be very political, and the odd man out was usually the manager to point the blame at. So fortunately, we've been able to endure that here, and we've had, I think I'm the fifth, and we've had a string of managers who kind of stuck around and all beat those 5 years. And it's a testament to the community and the stability there. And despite all the things that have come and gone in Sterling, especially in the 25 years I've been here, it does say something about the community itself and the councils we've had and how good they are to work with.
Awesome. Well, we'll dive back into some of that.
Okay.
But first, for people that don't know, what does the city manager do? Like, what is that role?
Part of the reason I like the career is it is very much different every day. But it's in many respects, it's representing the city, whether it's in contract negotiations, and that can be with whether it's labor side or it could be whether it's a street contract or whatever it is. I'm usually that person that's on the negotiating side for the city. There's all the personnel falls under me. So under typical mayor form, like if you're in Chicago, all those decisions that are personnel go to the mayor's office. And the idea with the city manager was to, around the turn of the century almost 2 centuries, the turn of 2 centuries ago, was to really try to bring efficiency and better practices into local government instead of having a new mayor elected and then putting his appointees in and kind of wiping everybody out and doing political favors. It was supposed to be a better effort at really making sure we're technocrats in a sense, so that we know what we're doing and we're hiring the right people for the right reasons, and it's not because of who I voted for or who I knew.
Okay.
It was really a better effort at civil service. And then I think we've seen more and more communities flip over to the city manager, and even locally or regionally, I should say. But there's the amount of complications that they've added. Every time you pass a regulation or law, we don't think about the unintended consequences of it, and a lot of it is just it's getting a lot more technical. And to ask somebody to come in off the street and suddenly understand, our budget this year was over $60 million, and that's not $60 million out the door, but that's between transfers, between funds and everything else. But keeping track of that and kind of having an understanding of where all that's going and why, asking somebody to come in off the street and do it day one after an election is asking a lot. So this is just really a better way, I think, of trying to make us more efficient and effective in the services we deliver.
Sure. So kind of like consistency, that kind of...
Yeah, absolutely. And just having that technical know-how, I think, is the big part. And that goes back to, we were going to hit on my history a little bit. And so my undergraduate degree and my master's degree are both in public administration. And so that was guiding us towards those principles in ethics in local government and some of the things you deal with. Whereas, if you're coming off the street as a mayor, salesperson, or coming off the street as a teacher to the mayor's position, or a salesperson to the mayor's position, or whatever part of the community you are, you're not going to know what we're doing every day in the city, and it's going to take a while to get ramped up to that. And this just kind of avoids all that, hopefully.
Okay, great.
And I think it for the councils and for the elected body, I think the other part is it takes down some of those barriers, maybe, because you might be afraid to know what you're going to do when you step into the role of alderman or into the role of the mayor. But by having that person there do all that hard work, you can be the face and really focus on the direction. And so in our form of government too, that's the big thing is the council is elected to really set the direction of the city and then leave it to us to make sure we get there and achieve that vision that they have.
Sure, sure. So what, besides that internship, like what kind of brought you to Sterling?
Well, so yes, I was born down in Decatur, so I'm Illinois native, and ended up in high school. My dad got transferred right before my freshman year over to Clinton, Iowa, so finished over there. So I was not too far away. It was kind of the area. And as I went to school, part of the thing to get to the graduate program was to interview with an alum or a professor. And the alum at that time that they sent me to was Jay Wheeland, and I'm guessing it's because my home address wasn't too far from here. So I interviewed with him, and he told me, hey, when it's time for your internship, to look me up. And so I looked him up, and he found a way to create an internship for me. Liked me enough to keep me around.
Awesome.
So I kind of got involved in more and more things, got plenty of familiarity with the city. And then in 2008, again, when they were doing the appointment, looking back, I think it was fortunate that the candidate pool that they had at that time was not the strongest, which played in my favor because at least, I was a known quantity, and at least had some familiarity with the organization. And, I was within the organization, got along with the people that were there, which like most of those people that were department heads at that time have since retired. And now it was on because I was the young guy in my 20s, and I had these people that had been there longer than I had been alive that I'm working with. But that's all rotated out now, and now I'm one of the senior people all of a sudden. It's a little awkward because I don't feel that old yet, but I'm still in the 40s. But certainly one of the more senior people, and that's just been one of the things we've been dealing with the last few years too. And like every other organization post-COVID, is the turnover in personnel has been incredible, and that's one of the biggest challenges in the last few years is on the personnel side.
Oh, wow. So over 25 years, you've probably seen a lot of change. Are there any significant things that kind of stand out you want to highlight?
I always tell people one of the crazy stories, it was, I hadn't been here that long at all, and it was a Friday afternoon, and president of the mill called, and he was looking for Ted Hagan, who was mayor at the time, and I said, he's not here, unfortunately. And then they asked for my predecessor, Jay Wheelan. I said, well, he's actually out today, too. And he's like, well, I need to get a hold of the mayor and let him know we're shutting down. And I thought, oh, okay. We'd been involved in some things. There were some emergency loans, and the state did some funky stuff and ran one of the loans through us. And so I was well aware of how tenuous the situation was, but I certainly wasn't expecting on a Friday afternoon to take that call and be the one that they're telling me this. And I'm like, well, best get a hold of the mayor.
Yes,
I was able to get a hold of him, but that was a shocking day. So going through all that, obviously we could make a 3-hour podcast on all the stuff we went through just for Northwestern Steel and Wire. But at the end of the day, we were able to stake a claim in bankruptcy court, which helped us kind of leverage some funds back to help for some of the cleanup. But that's and the amount of environmental stuff we went through, and first it's the application for the funds, and then it's the initial assessments. Then you hope after the assessments you go and you find a way to do the cleanup, and so you have to have. Like with Lawrence, we're doing this in Lawrence now. There's some chemicals underneath, and they've injected different things, trying to see what'll stop and neutralize those chemicals. And sometimes some things work, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes they make things worse. It had to happen at national. Just the testing phase. So they're like, okay, we're not doing that. But so then you have to figure out a cleanup plan, and then you have to have that approved by the EPA, and then hopefully then you can find the money and through grants to actually get the cleanup done. And that's been a big challenge for us. But obviously we've made a lot of headway. People were frustrated for so long, but I always carried around a PowerPoint that I had too that showed what things were like in 2004 and what things were like in 2014, and people forgot, how much had actually been accomplished, and you don't see the underground cleanup work. There's nothing to be seen there. How many monitoring wells are all through there. So you're not seeing any of that. You're not seeing all the grant application work. The just piles and binders of the test results and the monitoring, and it's crazy what we've done. And I always go back and, hey, we're a city of 15,000 people, slightly less now, the last census. We had a lot on our hands. The whole mill property, I believe, was 735 acres. Wow. And so concurrently, while you're trying to do the cleanup, the city put in a TIF to try and help Sterling Steel get it on its feet and get some refurbishments done to that part of the mill so that they could keep operating. So fortunately, since that was, I believe, 2004, we've been able to get those 300 jobs back there and keep them. And so we're really happy about that. So that's a TIF district that we used to make that happen. And there's just so many different moving pieces. And now I was just walking on the riverfront yesterday. The public works director and I were walking around with the engineer, double checking the camera and light placements for the walking path that's there. And as we're going around, you can see the construction going up to the shelter with the bathrooms. It'll have a backwards facing amphitheater towards the river. They were putting in the manifold for the splash pad to operate all the piping for the splash pad equipment, and you can see where they leveled out the ground for the playground area. So we're really excited about that. We're hoping by July that's there.
Wow. And
so for all these years, my predecessor, when he left, said the riverfront's going to kill the next guy, and it hasn't yet. We've come close a couple times, I think, but it hasn't yet.
Sure.
We're really excited to be able to show that off, and hey, we finally got something done, and it's just been the amount of work that's gone on behind the scenes. And I just kind of look at other communities who've not had a mill go down, or, an employer of 1,500 plus an employer of 6 and an employer of 400 right next to it that haven't had to deal with this. And, their biggest problem is, the potholes or whatever else, which is still our problem on top of what we've had to deal with. And I think it really is monumental, I think, what's happened here for a city our size. And it's just been, finding the right people to help us, because we're not big enough. We don't have that technical expertise either, but finding the right people that have been able to help has been huge. Gotten unlucky a couple times, got real lucky a few times, and in terms of who we've been able to find and bring on board with that expertise. But really happy that we're now seeing that. And then now we've got that developer who's helping with Lawrence and National, and just, when Lawrence went under, I don't know how many times we had Route 40 closed down because the hydrant was on the national side and people and vandals were in there doing things. And so you got Route 40 closed down, and we didn't want to take ownership of it because we had enough on our hands,
Right.
But here we are, and we ended up taking over. We filed for the deed based on lack of taxes being paid, plus they weren't being responsive to boarding the place up. Then we go in and we try to board the place up, and then the vandals. There's so many different ways into Lawrence. We're just chasing our tails trying to keep up with it. But we did get the grant last year for $500,000, and currently a few weeks ago, one of the things I did is we met with prospective cleanup contractors, and so they've gone through. Only 2, unfortunately, but we take what we get. And we're supposed to have bids back. They just moved the bid date back, so I think about 3 or 4 weeks from now we should have bids. And they want to start after the school summer season, because all the asbestos abatement companies are out dealing with the schools right now, or where they will be in the summer. And so as soon as that's over, they'll be doing the asbestos and lead paint abatement inside Lawrence, which is just the next step forward. And again, something people aren't going to see on the outside. But once we get that done, our developer is hoping to do something with the windows at least to kind of get that looking good. But as long as the abatement's going on inside and stuff's getting moved around and tossed around, and you're doing the asbestos and lead in the windows too, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go in there and do something now. But hopefully we get the eyesore somewhat rectified. I'm not going to promise great, but hopefully within a couple of years, that eyesore will go from the windows cleaned up to actually having an occupant in it, because the developer we found, and this is one of the things where we got lucky with, has had a couple different hoteliers go through there. So we're really excited to possibly have a boutique hotel on the 5-story section of Lawrence with covered parking in that 1-story section, and hopefully at the end of the day, some residential on the far east end of the property, which I think we can get that done in the next 5 years. I'm pretty, I'm being optimistic. I think I haven't been optimistic about a lot down there because I know what goes into it. But this, I've got a good feeling for, and maybe I hope it just doesn't come back to burn me, that I'm being pretty optimistic in my head that 5 years people are going to be shocked by what there is. And it'll be just a tremendous transformation for what people see coming in off the interstate into Sterling, and totally changing, I think, the story of what Sterling is just in people's minds. And it's amazing what a mindset and can really do, and what a community looks like and what it says about that community. Because you can come in and get the wrong idea real quick. Coming across to see Lawrence National, we know that, I know that, but unfortunately there's just a process there, and it doesn't help with the vandalism that takes place and constantly chasing that down. For sure.
Yeah, so I actually got to go on one of the tours when they were doing one of the developers through the chamber, and it was just interesting to see.
Yeah, the architecture in the first, I mean, if people hadn't faced it, the architecture is really cool in there. And that's what they see. And when you get all the way down to the east end where the potential is for condos, and I know people are aware of the train, but there are things to do to mitigate that. The Quad Cities have recently done that on the Moline side. There's the views up the river are awesome. You know, Rock Falls has obviously been able to do some transformation on their side. Now it's our turn. And a big part of that is hopefully getting tax credits from the state. So we got legislation hanging out there. Just one more thing we're doing. And I've let the mayor take that one and run with it. She likes it. Dealing with politicians, I'm not great at. I'm more into the technical part. I'll let her go deal with Springfield and the elected people down there. And she's doing a fine job with that. And hopefully those tax credits are going to bring the kind of the final piece into place as far as getting development going down there. Yeah,
I know it's been a big project.
Huge.
So, on so many different community organizations and public too.
Yeah, and just how much goes into it, and just the amount of square footage, and that's been the challenge for us too. So we've got a pretty good idea for Lawrence, and National is kind of up in the air, and this developer we're working with has done projects in Chicago, Milwaukee, all kinds of these places. But out here, it's just, that's a lot of square footage. When you're manufacturing that, you need it all, but trying to refill all that square footage, whether it's on the residential side, whether it's recreation space or whatever, anything but manufacturing, because that's always been the feedback we got from the community and past councils is, there was industrial forever, it was manufacturing forever. Sterling citizens in our community just didn't really have its own riverfront at all for public access, and this was a chance to make sure that happened. So we didn't want to bring conflicting uses down there, and really wanted to see a total transformation of the area.
Nice.
4 days of nonstop fun. The 2025 Dixon Petunia Festival is the place to be this July 3rd through 6th, with concerts, fireworks, food, the parade, and much more. Full lineup at petuniafestival.org.
Well, so we kind of went back in the past, but then we kind of looked a little bit to the future here.
Yeah, maybe I need a prescription. I don't know. It's just kind of jumping all over. I know.
So is there anything else, looking forward that you're envisioning or wanting to draw attention to?
I think one of the things I've been proud of the last few years too is just turning our own attention to our own parks and recreational stuff. Obviously people don't always understand the Sterling Park District's got its own separately elected board, its own director, but we do have a few parks in town that are actually ours. We do some cooperation with the park district because they're better at doing some things than we are, like mowing some larger areas. But when it comes to the equipment at Platt, Lincoln Park, Wallace Park, those are all ours. And, the new futsal court is kind of a cool thing. Our planner brought it up to me about what, it's kind of a new trend because the basketball court was falling apart. And like, what's something cool that we could bring to the community that hasn't been done. Oregon does have one, a small one too. They actually beat us to it, but otherwise Northwest Illinois is one of the first futsal courts. So that was kind of a cool thing, and then we've got two of them. We combine them with the old on the basketball court, so you can still play basketball if you want, but having futsal out there, we've had more people using that park since we put that in than I'd ever seen down there before. They've hosted some small tournaments, so we're really excited to bring something new that way. Lincoln and Platt a couple of years ago, we put in the obstacle course type, I don't know what, ninja type playground equipment to use. And before that, I can't, since the time I got here, I don't remember buying new park equipment. And Wallace Park, there's a couple other pieces out there. We used Facebook last summer to put up, I think, 5 different concepts that we got from different manufacturers and let people vote on what they wanted. And we bought the one that they voted on. So Public Works is trying to go out there this spring, ended up putting some ruts on the ground, so I pulled back out and said, we'll wait till the ground firms up a little bit more, but we'll have new playground equipment at Wallace. We've budgeted for new stuff at Platt to replace some of the younger equipment out there. It's just, we put a pavilion out at Platt. We've really put a lot of money in our parks, and the reason is, we want Sterling, the Chamber's got the Keystone group that they put together, and we're really trying to focus on, how do you keep people coming back to Sterling? We expect people to leave. I went off to college and I came back to a place like Sterling. How do you get people to want to do that? And it's, well, do I want to live there? You get drawn to the bigger city because you get more amenities. So what amenities can we bring to make it a homey place to live? And, I love our school district. My daughter's a part of that, and the park district. We've been part of so many programs, and I think in my probably my 7th or 8th year of coaching Little League out there at Westwood. And it's just, we have such fabulous programs here, and it is a quality place to live. And, CGH is an amazing asset for a community our size. I just find, it's almost why not Sterling in a sense. And there's not, it's not to say everything's perfect here, but, if you are looking for a stable place to come live, we've got a lot going on for it. But, how can we put ourselves over the top and having, amenities as part of that? And so it's that park down at the riverfront that, we bring access to, and making it not just a typical park, but trying to go a little bit above and beyond as far as what's there. We're trying to do a better job of connecting our trail system. The Park District's put a lot in.
Nice.
We've put a lot in. Not a lot. We've put some in. We're putting in about 10 blocks worth this year as we do the 2nd Street project. That was a 2020 grant that we wrote to get a 10-foot path to go all the way from the Dillon home or Martin's Landing, however you want to look at that path there, to the downtown. And then it'll go over Route 40 alongside the railroad bridge and land in the old national parking lot. And then from there, not a great way, but you can take the sidewalk under the train to get to the riverfront, or go down 2nd Street around the farmers market. And on that note, the farmers market, that pavilion building,
yes,
that was
very nice.
We used TIF money for that, and first it was trying to acquire those lots, and then eventually it just kind of fell into place with getting a couple of them signed over to us. But just having the vision for that, and I think the stylizing to really take in what goes there. And it was, now that Main Street's been a tremendous partner in putting together different programming there, from running the farmers market to like the car shows and the music they're bringing down there. It's just a tremendous asset there. And then hopefully, people will be stopping there and then going to the park, and hopefully all this stuff ties in. And, the biggest issue for me right now is obviously it's going to be for everything is how do you fund all these things,
sure.
right?
Yeah,
so we had some people get together and put together the Riverfront Foundation last year. I can't believe we're this far into 2025. But they're doing a good job of raising some serious money to get phase 2 and 3 of the Riverfront done. So we hope to have that bid out. So then everything is done. This year, the playground, splash pad, shelter. Next year, with any luck, the parking lot, the amphitheater seating area, and then the ice ribbon, which is going to be a unique thing for here too. So that'll be refrigerated so that it's not dependent on the weather. The weather would be helpful if it was colder. I don't know. I don't want to pray for that much cold, but it'd be nice to have all 4 seasons here.
Yeah.
The last couple of winters have been a little weird for us.
Yes.
But so they have that there as a kind of a cool amenity, and to just have that, again, tie everything together, that'd be good for us. But, sometimes we run into like 2nd Street. I heard complaints about 2nd Street for years, and so I get used to the abuse. You hear it. It starts off as little jabs, and then they get a little deeper and deeper. I know we're working on it, but sometimes I think the biggest frustration for us is sometimes just the process. And we got that grant awarded to us in 2020, and I think it was probably our 3rd go around at it. Knowing 2nd Street needed attention back then, but this path would go along, and the path we'd have to make some adjustments to the curb line, so it couldn't just be a standalone project. Well, when we got the grant for the path, that gave, because it was IDOT money and it would involve moving the curb line in, all of a sudden IDOT got to dictate the reconstruction of the road and how that went. And so we're at their mercy for their design review, how their specs go. And even we needed to get construction easements, and it was just one of those stories I tell is like if we're doing your local road, usually people are excited to have their road done in front of their house. They say, hey, here's an easement for construction so that we can get on your property. That if we have to, you got to dig up the curb or replacing the sidewalk. Right. Somebody's going to ultimately end up stepping on your property. So just make sure we've got permission to be there. Or if we're repouring the drive approach for your drive, making sure we've got the easement for that. IDOT's got a different way. And so you have to hire an appraiser off of their list, and they have to, and you have to pay them to appraise the property. You have to pay them to go negotiate it, and then pay them for settling the deal and everything else. And it just became this process for each house you're paying thousands for that we're doing knocking up to a door for free and say, hey, if you'd like to have your road rebuilt, we'd love to have your signature. And that's the way it goes. So it just adds time, adds money. And, unfortunately, I think we're going to eat up most of the grant and extra costs just between the extra steps we had to go through, and it took 4 years to get here. And so everybody knows inflation's not been good, especially on the construction side post-COVID. And this project, it was 6.2, I think is what it came out at, and it was estimated to be closer to a $4 million project when it started. And so this is it's frustrating to see, and I think that's the thing that has probably worn me down the most in 25 years is getting caught with rules that weren't written in one place, but they're written in someplace else. So, well, this is what the manual says, so this is what we have to do. Well, it doesn't make sense. Well, but that's what the manual says. And, well, can we change it? Well, that's not how it works. Okay. All right, you just beat your head against the wall and ultimately submit, and because otherwise you're just going to waste more time.
So, but that project is started now?
Yeah, Second Street. So right now, it's you'll see the roads closed signs are there. They're moving water lines right now, waiting on ComEd to get in there and move their power lines around because those have to go back because we're shifting from a sidewalk to that 10-foot path. And so then that's another thing. it's just the part of the problem because it certainly is not totally unique, but somewhat that the only utility the city owns is the sewer lines, right? So anytime we want to move water, gas lines, power lines, we're at the mercy of 3 other utility companies to work with, and some days are pretty good, and some of them are better than others. And sometimes it's really pulling teeth to keep things on schedule and moving. And we're fortunate that we don't get, at least they're coming out and doing it. It's just not always on the time scale we always necessarily like, and sometimes it's months added to the process. Yeah. Good times.
Well, wow, that's a lot of information. I'm sure there's much more.
I thought we just scratched the surface. Yes.
So, I will say, is there anything else that you would like to share, though?
I just think on our side is the challenges of, on the fiscal side for us. I think one of the biggest things we're seeing right now, policing. Since 2020, we've struggled for candidates. I remember throwing back 25 years ago, when you hire through the Fire Police Commission, which is another thing Illinois set up that we deal with. But the right intent, maybe not the best way, but we used to get like 100 people showing up in the Coliseum Auditorium for the testing dates. And then if you got on a list, if you made the top 10, you got on a list. And we would hire off of that list. That was the process. And you didn't necessarily get in 2 years through that list of 10 people just because there wasn't that much turnover. Now we're to the point, last few years, we're lucky to get a handful of people to even apply, let alone fill the list of 10 to hire from. And then everybody's poaching from everybody. We've seen our wages go up a lot. And then it went from union negotiation used to be, trying to, find that balance between fair pay but fair to the taxpayers and how we're going to do this. And of course, if you're on the union side, you're going to want more. I understand that. If you're on my side, you're trying to say, hey, we're going to be able to afford other things too. But now it's how do you just keep people here, period. And the state came out and they're hiring troopers at almost $100,000. And, we're starting in the 60s. And I can't blame somebody for jumping ship for another, $40,000. It's tough, but Sterling, Rock Falls, we can't afford to pay $100,000 for a brand new officer. So that's been the biggest thing for us is just recruitment and making sure we've got a quality, talented pool because, the more we shine the light on policing, the more people have kind of drifted away from the profession or even applying for it. And it creates that much more importance for a highly qualified police force. Sure. But we're not always getting the best candidates all the time. And so you got to sift through those, get the right background checks, and then hope out of those 4 or 5 you've got, as the turnover still happens because people finally don't like the career just after 10 years of it. It's enough.
Wow.
My dad was a police officer, and that's kind of a little bit of how I got into city stuff or had some interest. And, the way things were done then is certainly not the way they were now. Probably some good reasons for that, in a lot of ways. A little bit more Wild West back in the 80s. But, it's a concern for me long term is how do we keep finding those professionals, firefighters, almost as hard to come by too, even. It's they're obviously high stress jobs, they come with their own sets of danger, but they the benefits are great for us, and it's I don't know if there's a more rewarding career out there than those two. So but it's just how do we get people back interested in that? And so I guess for us, long term, I guess my concerns are how do we keep a quality, talented workforce for us and the community, and then how do we continue going forward and making sure that Sterling's a place that, okay, I went through college, I moved away, found some new experiences, ready to settle down. Mom and dad are still here, would be great grandparents or daycare people for me as we have kids or whatever else. Bring them back to the area, and that's really what I want to, that's always my goal, because my daughter is 14 now, and I wish I'd been able to get those bike paths built out a little bit further before she hit 14. And I wish the splash pad down at the riverfront was there before she was 14. It would have been great if she was 5. But that's just where we're stuck at. But I'm not solely thinking about her. I'm of course thinking about how that next generation that we come back for, and we haven't even touched housing. We can go on for a half hour in housing too. So and making sure we've got places for people to come back to. It's one thing to have the amenities and the services of the hospital, the park district, the schools, but if we don't have the housing, that's another issue. And that's something we, where does it fall on the priority list? And it's risen up from where it was, but it's just fighting so many other things. It's crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
Lots
of things. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming in and sharing all this with us, and best to you.
Yeah, sorry I ramble, but I'm a little nervous in front of cameras.
It's all good.
So it's, speech class was not my most fun in high school. I got a little better at college, and then I've kind of been forced to speak, and I just start rambling, mumbling, and everything else, and you got the brunt of it, and I'm sorry.
That's fine. We learned a lot today. So.
I hope so, and I'm happy to come back and expand on anything later if the desire exists.
Perfect.
Honest.
Well, again, congratulations on 25 years.
Yeah, we made it somehow. Hopefully there's at least 10 more to go, I guess. That's
awesome.
Survive, I hope.
All right, well, thanks again.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching Along the Rock, brought to you by the Radar Free Press.